Hello, hello. I'm your girl Jazzy. That's my nickname, but Jasmine is the real government, okay? I don't hide anything. But today since it's Black History Month, I wanted to cover the, I found a newspaper that's been around for 86 years, you guys. It's a Black-owned newspaper. Can you see that? Let me zoom in. Look, front cover, one of the first stories, it says, Regal was her name, Cicely Tyson passes at 96. That was one of the front cover stories of the newspaper. And I think she deserved that. So here we go. Here's some background on the newspaper. On August 10th, 2020, the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder, which is the name of the paper, MSR for short, began its 86th year of publishing and serving the community. It is the oldest Black-owned newspaper in the state of Minnesota and one of the longest-standing family-owned newspaper in the country. The entire country, you guys. This stuff is good stuff right here. Okay, it's been around for 86 years for a reason. All right, so it was launched by civil rights activists and businessmen, so he was both, by Cecil E. Newman in August of 1934. When it first came out, it was two separate papers. One was known as the Minneapolis Spokesman, and the other one was known as the St. Paul Recorder. Now, in 2007, it merged into one single news publication, and now is called the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. So they kind of took the spokesman from the Minneapolis part and the recorder from the St. Paul part and just put Minnesota. Rounded it all together. All right, so for the past 86 years, this newspaper has become a trusted voice for the Black communities of Minnesota. Now, I am actually reading an article that I got off the website, because they actually have a website. So they have a print that comes out every week, like the Pioneer Press, except better. Let me stop. All right, and I'm not an expert or whatever, but in my opinion, I really like this. And look how thin it is. Short and sweet. You don't gotta worry about all that extra stuff that don't mean anything to you. But there's that. I shall continue. All right, so it says, what this does, it focuses on empowerment and education of coming from a Black perspective, and they want to inform, not only inform, inspire, educate, and encourage conversations that go beyond what's covered on your everyday news channel or your like Star Tribune, the Pioneer Press, and other. Those are big major names that I know of, but I know there's more out there. But yes, so these stories are stories that are covered, that are not normally covered in those things. So you get to hear information that is not talked about everywhere. All right, so the building where everything had started, in November 20th, 2015, the Minneapolis City Council voted it as a local historic landmark. So the MSR right now is working on expanding its reach into the community, like social media channels, and social media that means by social and digital media channels. My bad, I got a little tongue tied. Okay, so and also they want to involve, they want to develop more opportunities for the community to get more engaged with them, involved with them, and they're going to do that by strategic partnerships and events. So that's something to look forward to. Now, the building is located 3744 4th Avenue South, Minneapolis, and it just so happens that that's where I grew up. Is on the south side of Minneapolis, but also north side. I spent a big chunk on the north side of Minneapolis and the south side, so Minneapolis is where it's at. Not anymore, I'm in St. Paul. But yeah, it was definitely where I was as a kid. And so that kind of blew my mind to think, like, dang, this place has been around for 86 years, smack dab in my community that I grew up in, and I never knew about it until a few weeks ago. And ever since then, I've been picking up the newspaper. You can kind of see, I have, can you see this? I highlight things that really stand out to me. I also read this, an article. It's called Reparations, a Philosophical Exploration. Now, that was another one of the front cover stories. So basically what happened was, there was, back in 1918, there was a 19-year-old black sharecropper named Sidney Johnson. He fatally shot a white plantation owner. And the reason he did this is because the plantation owner bailed him out of jail and said, you're gonna come work for me to work off the money that I used to bail you out. So long story short, he doesn't pay Sidney for a week's work, and he was beating this guy. So he's tearing this guy down. He's not giving him his pay that he's owed, and he's beating the guy. So he had enough. I mean, what does it say? If you back a dog into a corner, eventually they're gonna bite you. So that's what happened. Dude bit his, but really shot him and killed him. But the local authorities, this happened in South Georgia, which is so crazy because the local authorities had rounded up about roughly like 10 or so black people that worked for him, and because they couldn't actually pinpoint who killed the sharecropper, they end up no, not the sharecropper, but the plantation owner. Because they couldn't pin the killing on anybody, they just rounded up all these employees he had. Even some of them were in jail. They took them out of jail and they lynched them. They hung them and they lynched them. But then later on, one of the guys that was lynched had a wife. She was about 33 years old. She was 8 months pregnant. And she's like, you know what? I know what you guys did, and I'm gonna file a legal, like, a lawsuit or whatever you would call it, something legal against the police department. So what they did is they're like, we're gonna take an exception to her remarks and her opinion because we know, like, she's distraught, she's going through a lot, she's pregnant, whatever. But that's not really the case. They actually planned on killing her too because she threatened them. So what happened was that she got word, like, oh, these people, you know, they said they let it go, but they're actually looking for you. They're going to come and kill you. So she fled. But the mob and the police authorities and whoever was involved, you know, doing these illegal activities back then, they ended up catching up to her. While she was still alive, they poured gasoline on her. They lit her on fire. They hung her over a bridge. And before they did all that, they cut open her stomach. The baby fell to the ground. As the baby hit the ground, the baby started crying. And then one of the men stomped the baby in the head and killed the baby. Like, literally, this was super brutal, horrific stuff. And this was about, this was in 1918, so this wasn't even that long ago. Then 100 years later, there was a mob in the same area in Georgia that lynched a black man like a few miles away from this site, this very site. It's crazy how history can repeat itself, how there can be a man hundreds of years later lynched in right near the area that these people were killed. So that's one of the stories actually that you would never hear about in any newspaper, but they have it in this. It was the first story here, right here. And then there's another story, it's like cut in half, but then there's another like a start to another story here, and that goes on all of these stories in on page 5. So you would have to go into page 5 to read the rest. But yeah, when I heard that, when I read that story, it just shook something inside of me, because I'm like, whoa, I had the chills. I'm like, I can't believe after so long there's still people down there with these. But I mean, no matter what, to the end, a time, there's always going to be a black person that doesn't like white people. There's always going to be white people that don't like black people. There's always going to be racial tension because America was founded on slavery, and they built America on the backs of black people, and they still have not received any reparations. Black people today still own. This was a statistic that was like kind of blew my mind. I'm gonna go to it because you guys need to know this stuff. And I'm like, look, there's some. I'm not gonna say there ain't no wealthy black people out here doing their thing, but there's way more. They still have. Where is it? It says, to answer the question, consider that African Americans, who represent 12% of the population, own 1% of all assets in the country, according to Mehrsa Baradaran, author of The Color of Money, Black Banks and the Racial Wealth Gap. That figure is virtually unchanged from January 1st, 1863, when Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation and freed the slaves. That number has not changed even until today. So hundreds of years, I mean, what is it, hundreds? I would say hundreds, even more than that, years later, we still don't own nothing. There was, okay, I'm not going to give away too much because I have some more videos and I want to be able to go in depth with some of these things that I'm talking about. But I know you guys heard of the Black Wall Street that was based in Oklahoma and how that was burned down. So it's been, black people have been systematically put down since the beginning of time because they just want us to work for them and they can benefit off our labor while they got their feet kicked up. Now, it's up to us to take the power back. It's up to us to educate ourselves on things we don't know, that we weren't taught. It's up to us to take our power, to exercise our rights, to educate, inform, start community engagement, talk to one another. When we stand alone, it's called divide and conquer. This is how they always, from the beginning of time, people would take over another nation by dividing the people and conquering them. Because if you're like this out there in the wind, you can be easily knocked over. But when you're like this and you got all you guys standing together, something comes, y'all not gonna shake, y'all not gonna fold, and y'all gonna be stronger together than divided. And this is why I'm doing these channels. This is why I want to inform, educate, have a little fun at the same time, but this is some serious stuff. And we can benefit from sharing our information, sharing our knowledge, coming together more as a community, standing strong and standing united. That's my motto. We just got to get over the bickering, okay? And really set our pride to the side and just stop fighting over stuff that's just not important. But this is the physical copy. You can Google them. They have a website online. Now, this comes out every week. They come out with a printed version of the newspaper, but daily they upload articles and stories and stuff like that, information to the website daily. So, you guys, I want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Be sure to like this video, give it a thumbs up, and go ahead and push that subscribe button. There will be more good information coming to you guys soon. Until next time, it's your girl, Jazzy.